9.1, square roots. We're going to talk about square roots and how to find square roots of functions. We're going to talk about that. You will do them, listen, you will do square roots by hand and you will use a calculator. So take out your calculator. Here's the deal. If you don't have a calculator, I don't have spare ones because I had 7 spare ones at the beginning of the year and now they've all disappeared, 8th grade.
8th grade? I have a stick.
Well, considering my other classes don't use them.
I got my own calculator. I never know.
Okay, so here's the deal. You better start, hey, listen, 2 things. You better start bringing your calculators to class like you're supposed to because it's a card mark if you don't. It says supplies on your card. And 2, you will fail this section if you don't have a calculator.
It's kind of hard.
No excuses. It's like $5. Go get one.
That one does not cost $5.
Yes, it does.
Actually, I saw that.
And stop. Just stop. No, stop. No excuses. You cannot use your computer. You cannot use your cell phones. Get a freaking calculator. Okay, 9.1. Square roots. Okay, here we go. Square roots. Every positive numbers, not negatives, every positive number has 2 square roots. One is positive and one is negative. This symbol right here is called the radical sign. It's what tells me I'm taking the square root of something. So it's called a radical sign. It says what is the radical of this or what is the square root of this. When you see that sign, that's what it's asking. When you see this, plus and minus, okay, it stands for plus or minus. So when I write my answer, like the square root of 100, okay, it's plus or minus 10. Because 10 times 10 gives me 100, okay? But your answer is plus or minus 10. There's always 2 answers when you have a square root. 2 answers. There's a positive answer, there is a negative answer. That's why I put this plus or minus sign. If you don't put that plus or minus sign, you get partial credit taken off. Okay? So there are 2 answers when you are dealing with square roots. Okay. I'm going to read you this like little story and then we're going to answer this question. So, anyhow, they have a human chess match. You guys know what chess is?
Yeah.
Put it down. You don't need to read it. Okay, so they have a human chess match in September of every even numbered year. So like 2016, 2018, 2020. Okay. So of every even numbered year, people in Italy play an unusual chess game. Each chess piece is portrayed by a person. Okay? The people portraying the knights are even on horseback. I just want to be a knight on that, so I don't have to walk or do anything. Okay? So they look like the chess pieces they played. Okay? The chessboard is a square. Guys, focus. The chessboard is a square with an area of 324 square meters. What's the length of each side of the board?
3.
Now, question. How do you find the area of a square? No, I'm not asking for the perimeter. I'm asking for the area. You said length times width. Think differently for me. No, stop. Think differently for me. It is length times width. But think about a square. What do you know about squares?
They're all the same
They're
size.
all the same side. So it's actually, the formula for a square is actually, or the area for a square is actually the side squared. Okay?
Yes.
25.
Which means I can take the square root of 324 to figure out what one side is. Okay? So you're going to take the square root of 324. Now,
Why do I do that?
let's talk about how to plug this into your calculator. Okay. Do you see? There should be a button on your calculator that looks like the square root button. It should be on yours.
Press it.
It should be above the little caret button. Do you see that caret button?
What is it?
Wait, above?
What's the carrot button?
It
Guys,
should be next to the 7, like the top.
Actually,
Yeah,
there's
next to the
Right
7.
next to the.
time out. Yes.
Next to the 7.
Yeah, time out. There's 2 different ones. I need to explain these to you, okay? The one that is above the x squared in blue, or whatever color your calculator has it in, is the square root. That's what we're looking for. The one above the caret is if I'm taking something besides the square root, like the cube roots, the fourth roots. So we're not going to focus on that one today, okay? We're only going to focus on the one above the x squared. To get to it, you press the second button and then your x squared button, and it should come up on your calculator, yes?
What?
Press the second button, and then press the x squared button.
Second button.
Oh, I know the answer.
Okay.
18.
Square.
Yes, and then you plug in. So when you press the second button, you're going to press the second button,
I got point
and then the x squared button, okay? After you press that, it should show you something like this, and it should have a parenthesis in there, yes?
Yeah.
Okay? Plug in 324, and then let's get in a good habit of practicing ending that parenthesis, because later on, if we don't end that parenthesis, we're going to mess things up. And then you press enter. What do you get?
18.
Okay. So, what is the square root of 324? 18. So, what is the length of each side?
18.
18 what?
I mean,
18 meters.
18 meters. Okay? So, we are going to have to use calculators for larger numbers. Do you see what I'm saying right now?
yes.
Okay. So, it's pretty simple. You press the second button, you press the x squared button, you press the number you want to find the square root of, and then you press enter.
So 18 times 4 was
Why do you keep talking to me?
Guys, I'll wait on you. What? The one that says second. Are you ready?
Is that?
Craig, focus on you. Okay. So when I'm finding the area of something, it's because of a square. It's because the sides are squared. I squared something to find the area. Okay. That's why when you answer something from an area, it says like 324 square meters because you squared it. Okay. So to undo that, you take the square root. Now, how do I find the square root of 16 and 144? Does anyone know what the square of 16 is?
4 and 12.
And 12. Okay, so we know those because we're familiar with those, right?
I
So
got a
the
question.
square root of this is 4. The square root of this is 12.
I got a question.
What?
Miss McCain, she gave us a sheet last year. And it had like all the square roots on it and stuff.
Good. You're not going to get that.
Alright, then.
Okay, now, problem. The answer is not 4. The answer is not 12. What is my answer?
Plus
Plus or minus
Plus or
4.
minus 4.
Okay, now question for you.
How do we get plus or minus 4?
Because the square root always has a positive answer and a negative. Here's why. If I take 4 times 4, what do
16.
If I take negative 4 times negative 4, what do you get?
16.
16.
No, you get positive. Because a negative times a negative is a positive. That's why it has a positive and a negative answer. Now, question. Why on this one did I not make you tell me plus or minus?
Because it's a square.
No.
You can have negative meters.
I can't have negative meters. So anytime I'm dealing with measurement, I'm not going to have a negative square root. Okay? So that's the only time you don't have to show me the plus or minus is when you're dealing with measurement. Okay? Now, here's the deal. And I think we're going to talk about this. We'll probably talk about it later on in here. Yeah, we will. There's another way to do this that we're going to talk about. Okay, perfect squares. A number that is a square of an integer is called a perfect square. So 1 is the perfect square of 1 square. Yeah, 1 squared is the perfect square of 1. Because when I square 1, I get 1. 2 is the perfect square of 4. Because when I square 2, I get 4. 3 is the perfect square of 9. Because when I square 3, I get 9. 4 is the perfect square of 16. Okay, 5 is the perfect square of what?
25.
25.
It's the perfect square of 4.
Okay, 12 is the perfect square of 144. What's 11 the perfect square of?
22. No.
121. Okay, so those are perfect squares when they come out perfectly even and give you a whole number. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Okay, when that doesn't happen, we're going to do one of two things. If it tells us to approximate the perfect square of 51, does 51 have a perfect square? No. Nothing can be multiplied by itself to give me 51. Because 51 even, is 51 a prime number even?
Nope. I mean,
Okay?
What's the
Now listen.
Isn't it 25?
When it says approximate the square root of 51 to the nearest integer, that means it wants a whole number. It does not want you to put it in your calculator. So do not get your calculators out for these ones. Listen to what I'm saying. What do we know about perfect squares? Let's think about numbers that have perfect squares that are close to 51. Okay.
52?
50.
50 doesn't, 48 doesn't.
50?
What'd you
What about
say?
50?
No, 46, 49.
49.
Okay, stop.
Oh.
Guys, stop.
49.
Listen, Craig, shut your mouth. 49 has a perfect square of what? 7. Okay, so the square root of 49 is perfect, okay? But it's less than the square root of 51, right? Because 49 is less than 51. Okay, we need to figure out another number that is above 51 that has a perfect square. 50, I need to figure out a number that is above 51 that has a perfect square. Think about this. You told me the square root of 49 is what?
It's probably gonna be like
7, right? It's 7? So what number's after 7?
56. Wait, 56, right? Oh.
Guys,
64.
I hear the right answer, but I need you to answer me first.
8 times 8.
Listen, I am asking you so that you can think through this during your homework. Guys, shut your mouths! And listen to what I'm asking so you can ask yourselves these questions during your homework. Okay? Kate and Emma are right, but I need you to think about something for me. Okay? If you know that 49 is the closest number to 51 underneath it that has a perfect square of 7, okay? Then you have to ask, what number is after 7? 8. Okay? That's the next number you're going to work with. What is 8 squared?
64.
Is that greater than 51? Yes. Okay? Now. Okay? Now, in your calculator, this is where this comes in hand. What do you get when you take the square root of 51?
You get 7.14.
Okay, good. Also, so I get 7.14, right? Something like that. So when I approximate it to the nearest integer, it is 7. But this is how they want you to show it, is this way. Or you can look at it this way. Square root of 49 is less than the square root of 51, which is less than the square root of 64. Which number is 51 closer to, 64 or to 49? 49. So that's how I go and choose 7 instead of 8. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so you need to figure out one number above it or one number below it, and then keep going. If 8 hadn't ended up being above it, I would have to go to 9. You get what I'm saying? Because you want the closest, yes, you want the closest number below it and the closest number above it. Okay? So your answer is 7 because it says approximate. They do not want this decimal answer. They want you to show it this way. 7's less than, or radical 49 is less than radical 51, which is less than radical 64, so it's 7. What, Kate? Okay, good.
Because like they had every number on like the sheet of paper, and like you would have 51, you would have like the
Okay,
decimal,
good.
and then it would be like 49 there, and you would like 51.
Cool. Okay, good. Now, approximate the square root of 125. Okay? I want to approximate the square root of 125 to the nearest integer. So what would get me close to 125?
121.
Which is what? 11. So the square root of 121 is less than the square root of 125, which is less than what? So try 12. 12's next, right? 144. Which number is it closer to?
121.
So your answer is going to be
11.
Okay? That's how they want you to set this up. Okay, 4 more things. Now, when it tells you to use a calculator to approximate the square root, you're going to get your calculator out and approximate it to the nearest, in this case, 10th. So 1 decimal place. So what's the square root of 515?
Oh, that's
22.56.
22.7.
I'm sorry, that's not the answer.
22.6. No,
Yes.
22.7.
Plus or minus.
22.7.
Plus or minus 22.7. Do not forget that plus or minus. Understood? Do not forget the plus or minus.
So it's like whenever we have
Oh.
Yep.
Your hand off this
Or
table.
anytime that it has a perfect square, you're gonna say plus or minus. The only time I don't say plus or minus is if it's a measurement or if it's like this, because they're having us approximate some stuff, okay? Now, let's talk about evaluating. It says evaluate 2 times radical a plus b squared when a is 11 and b is 5. What do we need to do first?
I feel like you should square 5.
And what else?
Oh,
And put 11 in.
I feel like we should plug the numbers in for the letters. Stop, Jason.
And then square 20.
Stop making unnecessary noises. So 11 plus 5 squared like that. I'm going to rewrite it by plugging numbers in. What's 5 squared? So I have 11 plus 25. What's 11 plus 25?
36.
Okay, now, do you know the square root of 36?
Yeah, simple.
Yeah.
6.
Okay, time out. It's not just 6, it's what? Okay, so here's the deal. I have this. I have 2 times plus or minus 6, right? Because that means times on the outside. So I have to multiply 2 times 6, which is what?
12.
12. And I have to multiply 2 times negative 6, which is? So you can write your answer like this. Plus or minus negative 12. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, so you have to write an answer. You get 2 answers in this case. Okay, we got another one. Evaluate the square root of b squared minus a when a is 12, b is 4. What do I do?
Plug in numbers.
Okay, plug in. So I'm going to say 4 squared minus 12. What's 4 squared?
16.
What's 16 minus 12?
4.
What's the square root of 4?
Plus or minus 2.
Plus or minus.
Beautiful. Plus or minus 2. I need you to show me all of these steps on your homework. Okay? If you don't show me those steps on your homework, I give you a 0 tomorrow in the grade book.
I got this. I got it.
Okay. Word problem and then we're done. An amusement park ride includes a free fall drop. Guys, there is no reason your mouth should be moving, Emmanuel. Turn around and stop speaking. An amusement park ride includes a free fall drop of 272 feet. You can use the equation d equals 16 times t squared to determine the time in seconds that it takes a dropped object to fall a distance of d feet. How long does the free fall part of the ride take? How do I set up this equation?
Would it be 272 equals 16t squared?
Yes. 272 equals 16t squared. Because 272 is my distance, is my d in feet. Okay? Which means I plug it in here to that equation. And I'm trying to find the time because it says how long does it take. That means I'm finding the time. So my t should be blank. How do I solve from here?
16 times.
Nope.
You divide by
You divide by what?
16.
16. What's 272 divided by 16?
That's 272.
17.
17.
I got that first.
I got it first.
I got it first.
I got it
Me and
first.
Carter said it way
Okay, so 17,
I
guys, 17 equals t squared. Now what do I do?
17.
17.
Time out. How do I get rid of a square?
You
Change
you
it to a
multiply.
Time out.
Oh.
No, listen. What does this sign say? When you read it, what is it? Radical or what? Square root. So how do I get rid of a square? You take the square root. So I'm taking the square root of both sides. Okay? What is the square root of 17?
Oh,
That's going to be a decimal. You're going to need to do it in your calculator.
Square root of 17. I got this.
Round to the 10th place. Okay, 4.1.
4.1, 2, 3, 10, 5, 6.
Plus or minus 4.1. Now, use some common sense. Use some common sense. This is time, so what is my answer?
4.1 seconds.
4.1 seconds. Yeah, 4.1 seconds.
Equal.
Okay, 4.1 seconds. Beautiful. Okay?
So T.
Because only the positive solution makes sense, the situation for the free fall is 4.1 seconds. Okay? So when you are trying to get rid of a square, you have to take the square root.
of that number.
Okay? Those are the things you are working on your homework tonight.
So that's